She had always loved the piano. Even as a small child, the sound of keys made her heart race and her mind feel free. She didn't come from a wealthy family, and she didn't have fancy lessons or a grand piano in her home. All she had was an old, slightly out-of-tune piano in the corner of her tiny living room, and her determination. Every day, after finishing chores and schoolwork, she would sit down and practice. Sometimes her fingers hurt, and sometimes the notes didn't sound right, but she kept going because music was more than just notes for her. It was life itself. Her talent had been noticed by a few people, but there were many who doubted her. Some thought she should stick to small recitals or school competitions, not real stages where serious pianists performed. They didn't understand her passion, and their words often stung. She had learned to ignore most of it, focusing only on the music that poured out of her heart. But there was one person whose opinion she couldn't easily dismiss. He was a renowned piano teacher in their town, someone whose approval could open doors or close them forever. People often said he was harsh, but that he knew talent when he saw it. He had the power to make or break aspiring musicians, and everyone seemed to respect his judgment. One afternoon, she received an invitation to a local music showcase. It was a big deal in her town, and many families and students would be there to listen. She felt excited but also nervous. It was the perfect opportunity to show her skills, but she also knew that this famous teacher would be in the audience. The thought of performing in front of someone who could humiliate her made her stomach twist. She remembered stories of other students who had been mocked, their dreams crushed by a single sharp remark. But still, she couldn't let fear stop her. She practiced for hours each day, running the same pieces over and over until her fingers knew them without thinking. On the day of the showcase, the hall was buzzing with energy. Parents, students, and music enthusiasts filled the seats, talking quietly as they waited for the performances to begin. She carried a small bag with sheet music, though she often didn't need it. Her old piano at home had trained her more than any sheet could. Backstage, she could hear other performers warming up. Some were confident, some anxious, but all looked professional. She felt like she didn't belong at first glance. Her dress was simple, and her shoes weren't polished like the others. Her hands trembled slightly as she clutched her music. But then she took a deep breath, reminding herself why she was there. It wasn't about the clothes or the polished appearance. It was about the music inside her. Finally, it was her turn. She walked onto the stage, feeling the stage lights warm against her skin. The audience turned to look, and she caught a glimpse of the famous teacher sitting in the front row. His gaze was sharp, assessing, almost like a predator watching. He raised an eyebrow as if to say, "Let's see what you've got." She felt a pang of fear but pushed it aside. She approached the piano and sat down. The keys felt familiar under her fingers, almost like an old friend greeting her. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting the audience fade away, letting only the music speak. Then the teacher spoke. His voice was loud and cutting, carrying across the hall. "Are you sure you're ready for this? Maybe you should stick to simpler pieces before embarrassing yourself." The words hit her like a cold wind. She felt heat rise to her face, and for a moment, doubt crept in. But then she remembered every late night she had spent practicing, every sacrifice she had made. She remembered the feeling of music flowing through her, the joy it gave her that nothing else could. She took a deep breath and let her fingers hover over the keys. The audience was silent, sensing the tension. Whispers traveled through the room, some skeptical, some curious. Everyone wondered if she could actually perform under such pressure. The teacher leaned back in his chair, smirking slightly, confident that he would soon be proven right. But she ignored him. She wasn't there to fight with anyone. She was there to let the music speak. She pressed the first key, and the note rang out. It was clear, honest, full of emotion. She continued, her hands moving faster, more confidently, filling the hall with sound. She played from her heart, letting the music tell her story of struggle, hope, and passion. Each note was deliberate, yet flowing, showing skill and feeling intertwined. The audience began to shift in their seats, leaning forward, listening more closely. Something was happening, they could feel it, even if they couldn't explain it yet. As she continued, she forgot about the teacher, the whispers, even her own nervousness. The music carried her, lifting her above fear and doubt. She could see some audience members with their mouths slightly open, eyes wide with surprise. They hadn't expected such talent from someone who looked so ordinary, someone who had been doubted and dismissed. Her heart beat fast, not from fear now, but from exhilaration. She was finally expressing everything she had held inside for so long. The teacher's expression changed gradually. At first, he looked amused, certain of what would come next. Then, a flicker of doubt crossed his face. He had underestimated her. His smirk faded slightly as he watched her fingers dance across the keys, producing music that was not just technically impressive, but emotionally moving. He leaned forward, almost unconsciously, trying to analyze what was happening, but words couldn't describe it. The music itself was saying what no criticism could. The performance continued, each note stronger than the last, each phrase more expressive. She had forgotten everything except the music. It was as if the piano and she were one, communicating a story only she could tell. The audience was completely drawn and now silent, hanging on every note. The room seemed to hold its breath, captivated by her talent and passion. She had turned the fear and humiliation into a performance that no one could ignore. When the final note rang out, it lingered in the air like a whispered secret. For a moment, there was silence. Pure, unbroken silence. The audience sat frozen, unable to process what they had just heard. She opened her eyes slowly, seeing their reactions for the first time. Faces were lit with awe and admiration. The same teacher who had doubted her sat frozen, eyes wide, mouth slightly open, unable to hide his shock. She had done more than play a piece. She had told her story, proven her talent, and silenced the criticism with her skill and heart. Finally, the silence broke into thunderous applause. People stood, clapping, some with tears in their eyes. She smiled softly, feeling a warmth in her chest she had never felt before. She had faced humiliation and fear and turned it into something beautiful. That day, she didn't just perform a piano piece. She showed the world that talent, dedication, and heart could overcome doubt and disrespect. And as she left the stage, she realized that no one could ever humiliate her again. Not if she stayed true to herself and her music. The moment she left the stage, her hands were still trembling, but the feeling was no longer fear. It was excitement. The applause had been overwhelming, and she could feel the energy of the audience following her as she stepped off the stage. She paused backstage for a moment, letting the sounds of clapping and cheering wash over her. It was a new experience, one she had only dreamed of, and now it was real. The air backstage felt charged, filled with whispers and murmurs from people who had witnessed something extraordinary. The famous teacher sat in the front row, his eyes fixed on her, still trying to process what he had just heard. He had underestimated her, thinking that her simple appearance and humble background would define her abilities. But now, faced with the undeniable truth of her performance, he couldn't hide his surprise. The expression on his face had changed from smugness to a mix of shock and admiration. He leaned back, muttering to himself, clearly unsettled. It was not often that someone caught him so off guard, and this young woman had done it effortlessly. She moved to a quiet corner, breathing deeply and letting the moment sink in. Other performers and audience members began approaching her, some with wide eyes and open mouths, unable to contain their amazement. "I've never heard anything like that," one whispered, shaking her head. "Where did you learn to play like that?" Another said, "You have to perform at bigger venues. People need to hear you." She smiled politely, her heart swelling with a mixture of pride and humility. She didn't play to impress anyone, but it was hard not to feel happy when so many were genuinely amazed by her talent. Despite the praise, she couldn't help but notice the teacher making his way backstage. He approached slowly as if unsure how to begin. Her stomach twisted, remembering his harsh words from earlier. But now she felt calm. She had nothing to prove, Yet there was an undeniable curiosity about what he would say next. He stopped a few steps away, eyes studying her intently, and for a moment, there was silence. "I didn't expect that," he finally said, his voice quiet, almost unrecognizable compared to the confident tone he had used before. She looked at him steadily, letting him gather his thoughts. "You have a gift," he continued, the words heavy with honesty. "I underestimated you, and I can see now that I was wrong." She nodded, acknowledging his change of perspective without needing to respond verbally. She had learned long ago that actions and music spoke louder than words. The rest of the day was a whirlwind. People kept coming to congratulate her, and some even asked for advice or tips on how she had practiced. She explained her routine simply, emphasizing that dedication, patience, and love for music were more important than anything else. She told them that anyone could reach their potential if they stayed committed and believed in themselves. Her words were simple, but they carried weight because she lived them every day. As evening approached, the hall began to empty, leaving her alone with her thoughts. She reflected on what had just happened and realized something important. Humiliation and doubt were powerful forces, but they were not stronger than determination and passion. The teacher's harsh words had stung, but they had also ignited something within her. They had reminded her why she played music, not for approval but for the love of it. That clarity gave her a quiet strength she had never felt before. Later, as she walked home through the quiet streets, the memory of the performance kept replaying in her mind. She thought about the moment she first pressed the keys, the way the music had flowed through her, and the reactions of the audience. She realized that the most important applause was not from others but from herself, the satisfaction of knowing she had stayed true to her talent and heart. Each step she took felt lighter, almost as if the music had lifted her physically as well as emotionally. The next day brought a mix of excitement and anxiety. News of her performance had spread quickly. People she didn't even know were talking about it, sharing stories of the young woman who had stunned everyone. Invitations to perform at local events, schools, and even bigger venues started appearing. For a moment, she felt overwhelmed, wondering if she could handle it all. But then she remembered the same determination that had carried her through endless hours of practice. She realized that each opportunity was a chance to continue sharing her music and passion with the world. Despite the excitement, she remained grounded. She continued to practice every day, not for fame or recognition, but to improve herself and her music. Each session at the piano was a quiet reminder of her journey, the struggles she had faced, and the joy that came from expressing herself. She knew that the road ahead would have challenges, but she was ready. Humiliation and doubt would no longer control her. She had found her strength in the music itself. Meanwhile, the teacher could not stop thinking about her performance. He replayed the notes in his mind, analyzing the way she had played, trying to understand the depth of her talent. For the first time in a long time, he felt humbled by a student. He realized that judging someone by appearances or background was a mistake he would not make again. It was a quiet lesson, but one that would stay with him forever. Her talent had forced him to reflect, to reconsider, and to recognize that true skill and passion could come from the most unexpected places. In the days that followed, she received messages and letters from people who had witnessed her performance. Some were aspiring musicians seeking guidance, some were music lovers who wanted to express their admiration, and some were strangers simply inspired by her story. She responded to each message with gratitude and encouragement, sharing her belief that perseverance and love for one's craft could overcome almost any obstacle. Her humility and kindness only added to the respect people felt for her. She was no longer just a performer. She had become an inspiration. As time passed, she began performing at more events, slowly gaining recognition beyond her town. Each performance was different, each audience unique, but the core of her music remained the same: honest, heartfelt, and full of life. She continued to remember the day she had been humiliated, not with anger or resentment, but with gratitude. It had been a turning point, a moment that reminded her of her purpose and fueled her passion even more. Through all of this, she never forgot the lessons she had learned. that true talent cannot be measured by appearance, background, or the opinion of others, that music is a language of the heart that transcends doubt and criticism, and that confidence comes from preparation, perseverance, and belief in oneself. She carried these lessons in every note she played, touching the hearts of those who listened. Her journey was far from over, but the experience of facing humiliation and turning it into triumph had changed her forever. She had discovered not only the power of her music but also the power within herself. And as she looked ahead to the future, she knew that no matter what challenges or doubts came her way, she could face them with courage, grace, and the unwavering love of music that had always guided her. Days passed since her performance, but the memory of that moment stayed alive in her mind. She woke up every morning thinking about the applause, the astonished faces in the hall, and even the expression of the teacher who had doubted her. Life around her seemed almost normal, yet she felt different inside. There was a quiet confidence now, a sense of calm strength that she had never experienced before. She no longer worried about what people thought of her music because she had seen the power of her own dedication and talent. However, her life was not without challenges. Not everyone was supportive, and whispers still existed about her humble beginnings and lack of formal training. Some people suggested she should not aim for bigger stages or competitions. Yet, each time she heard such words, she remembered the day on the stage and how her music had spoken louder than anyone's doubts. That memory became a shield against negativity and a reminder of what she could achieve when she focused on her passion. One afternoon, she received a surprising message from a local music academy. They had heard about her performance and wanted her to come for an advanced training session, offering guidance from experienced musicians. At first, she hesitated. She had always believed in learning on her own, practicing tirelessly without formal instruction. But the opportunity was too good to ignore. She realized that she could learn even more, enhance her skills, and continue sharing her music with the world. So, with a mixture of excitement and nervousness, she agreed to visit the academy. The day she entered the academy, she felt both awe and anxiety. The halls were filled with pianos, students practicing diligently, and walls adorned with photographs of famous musicians. She felt like a small fish in a very big pond. For a moment, doubt crept in, whispering that she didn't belong there. But she remembered the feeling of her fingers on the piano keys, the flow of music that had silenced the hall. That memory gave her courage to move forward. Her first session with the instructors was intense but inspiring. They observed her playing, offered constructive feedback, and introduced her to new techniques she had never tried. Every note she played showed them her potential, and they were amazed at her natural talent and dedication. Despite her initial nervousness, she adapted quickly, eager to learn and improve. The experience reminded her that even though she had succeeded alone, learning from others could open doors she hadn't even imagined. Meanwhile, the teacher who had humiliated her could not stop thinking about her performance. He had always been proud of his ability to judge talent, but this time he had miscalculated. He decided to visit the academy, curious to see if her talent was real or just a one-time lucky performance. When he arrived, he watched her play again, and once more he was forced to admit her extraordinary skill. He felt a mixture of respect and regret. Respect for her undeniable talent, and regret for ever doubting her in public. He realized that her perseverance and love for music had created something far more powerful than criticism ever could. At the academy, she began to form friendships with other students who shared her passion. They were supportive, encouraging, and inspired by her story. Together, they practiced, shared tips, and sometimes even performed small pieces for each other. She felt a sense of belonging she had never felt before, surrounded by people who understood the sacrifices and joys of pursuing music. These connections became an important part of her journey, helping her grow not just as a pianist, but as a person. As her skills improved, she started thinking about performing in larger venues. The idea both thrilled and scared her. She remembered how nervous she had been at the first showcase, and she wondered if she could handle an even bigger audience. But she also knew that fear was part of growth, and she refused to let it stop her. She continued to practice tirelessly, often staying late into the night, perfecting each piece until it sounded exactly as she envisioned. Her dedication inspired both her instructors and fellow students, and slowly, she began to gain recognition beyond her small town. One day, she was invited to perform at a regional music competition. This would be a bigger stage with more people and some of the most talented musicians in the area. She felt her heart race as she prepared, knowing that this was another chance to prove herself. Yet, this time, she wasn't trying to silence anyone or respond to criticism. She simply wanted to share her music and express the emotions she felt every time she played. The thought gave her a calm determination, a clarity that only came from true passion. The day of the competition arrived, and the hall was filled with eager spectators. She stepped onto the stage, carrying the quiet confidence she had developed over the past months. She remembered the applause from her first performance, but now she felt ready for whatever came next. The moment her fingers touched the keys, she lost herself in the music. Each note told a story of perseverance, hope, and the countless hours she had spent practicing alone. The audience listened in silence, captivated by the emotion and skill in every phrase. Her performance was flawless, not because she wanted to impress anyone, but because it was the truest expression of her heart. When the final note lingered in the air, the hall erupted in applause once again. She smiled, feeling a warmth in her chest that had nothing to do with recognition. It was the satisfaction of knowing she had shared her music honestly and fully. In that moment, she realized that the journey mattered more than the outcome. Each stage, each challenge, and each lesson had shaped her into the musician and person she had become. After the competition, she was approached by organizers, instructors, and even strangers, all wanting to congratulate her and learn from her story. She remained humble, sharing her experiences and encouraging others to pursue their passions regardless of obstacles. She knew that her music had the power to inspire, and she wanted to use that power to help others believe in themselves. It was no longer about proving anything to the teacher or the skeptics. It was about spreading the love of music and showing that dedication and heart could overcome doubt. Over time, she continued performing, each experience building her confidence and skill. She returned to the academy for advanced lessons, explored new styles of music, and continued to challenge herself in ways she never imagined. The lessons she had learned from humiliation, doubt, and perseverance stayed with her, shaping her decisions and her outlook on life. She realized that obstacles were not barriers, but opportunities to grow stronger and more resilient. Through it all, the teacher who had once humiliated her followed her progress quietly. He eventually approached her with genuine admiration, no longer a critic but a supporter. He acknowledged the mistake he had made and expressed respect for her talent, perseverance, and humility. She accepted his words graciously, understanding that even those who doubt can later recognize the truth of talent and passion when they see it firsthand. The experience reminded her that judgment often comes from misunderstanding, but consistent dedication can reveal the true value of someone's abilities. By now, her reputation as a talented and dedicated pianist had grown steadily. She had learned that success was not defined by immediate recognition, but by the steady accumulation of effort, resilience, and the courage to follow her heart. Each day she spent at the piano was a reminder of her journey, the challenges she had faced, the people she had inspired, and the music that had always been her guide. And as she looked toward the future, she felt ready to embrace every opportunity, knowing that her love for music would always lead her forward, no matter what obstacles lay ahead. She had performed at many local venues by now, but nothing compared to the anticipation she felt when she received an invitation to play at a prestigious regional music festival. It was the kind of event that attracted talented musicians from all over, and the audience would include critics, instructors, and music lovers who had high expectations. For a moment, she felt nervous. The memories of past doubts and the harsh words of the famous teacher came back, but she quickly reminded herself of how far she had come. She had practiced for months, refining her technique, exploring new pieces, and preparing for this very moment. The day of the festival, the hall was grander than any she had seen before. The seats stretched far back, and the stage was elevated with bright lights illuminating every corner. Musicians were warming up, tuning their instruments, and exchanging quiet conversations. She could feel the hum of excitement and anticipation in the air. Even though the hall was intimidating, she carried with her a quiet confidence, the kind that comes from countless hours of practice and overcoming self-doubt. Backstage, she waited, listening to the other performers. Some played beautifully, and she felt a pang of nerves, wondering if she could match their skill. But then she closed her eyes and remembered the first time she had faced humiliation and still played from her heart. She realized that fear was temporary, but music was forever. It wasn't a competition for her to prove herself to anyone. It was an opportunity to share her soul through her piano. That thought steadied her. When it was her turn, she walked onto the stage with measured steps. The lights shone down, and the audience quieted in anticipation. She glanced briefly at the famous teacher sitting in the front row, now more composed and respectful. He nodded subtly, as if to say he trusted her ability this time. She took a deep breath and let her fingers rest on the keys, feeling the familiar texture beneath them. The world outside the music faded away. All that mattered was the sound she could create. The first notes were soft, delicate, almost like a whisper. They filled the hall with a gentle energy, drawing the audience in. As she continued, the music began to rise, building layers of emotion and technical skill. She had chosen a piece that was both challenging and expressive, one that would show the depth of her talent without sounding forced or rehearsed. Each phrase flowed naturally, a reflection of her journey, her struggles, and the joy of finally mastering her craft. The audience was captivated. People leaned forward, eyes wide, as the music carried them through a story of resilience and hope. Her hands moved swiftly yet gracefully over the keys, combining precision with passion. Every note was deliberate, yet it seemed effortless. She could see the subtle reactions of the people in the front rows, the raised eyebrows, the widened eyes, the gentle nods of appreciation. Her performance was not just heard, it was felt. Midway through the piece, she allowed herself a moment of improvisation, letting her emotions guide her fingers. It was a risky move, but one she had practiced countless times. The audience gasped softly, amazed by the unexpected brilliance and depth of her expression. Even the other musicians backstage paused, listening intently, impressed by the confidence and creativity she displayed. It was a moment where skill, emotion, and courage converged, and she felt alive in a way that only music could provide. She continued to play, gradually building to a powerful crescendo. Her fingers danced across the keys with speed and accuracy, each note resonating clearly throughout the hall. She could feel the energy of the audience feeding back to her, encouraging her to push further, to pour every ounce of herself into the performance. The music became a conversation, a shared experience between her and everyone listening. She was no longer just playing for herself. She was telling a story, one that everyone could understand and feel. When the final notes lingered in the air, the hall fell silent for a heartbeat. Then, the applause erupted like thunder, echoing off the walls. People stood, clapping, cheering, and even wiping tears from their eyes. She smiled, a quiet, grateful smile, feeling the warmth and energy of the moment. She had faced her fears, played with her heart, and connected with the audience in a way that words could never express. The famous teacher approached her again after the performance. This time there was no doubt, no hesitation. His eyes reflected genuine admiration. "You have grown so much," he said quietly. "I am proud of what you have accomplished." She nodded respectfully, understanding that this acknowledgement was meaningful, not because it came from him, but because it represented her journey from doubt and humiliation to mastery and self-confidence. After the festival, invitations to perform at other events began to pour in. People recognized not only her skill but also the authenticity and emotion she brought to her performances. She was no longer just a talented pianist. She had become a source of inspiration for others who doubted themselves or faced criticism. She realized that her journey was about more than music. It was about showing that perseverance, passion, and staying true to oneself could overcome obstacles. Despite the success and recognition, she remained grounded. She continued to practice daily, exploring new pieces, refining her technique, and finding new ways to express her emotions through music. Each day at the piano was a reminder of where she had come from and what she had overcome. She knew that talent alone was not enough. It required dedication, patience, and the willingness to grow continuously. Her story began to spread beyond the local music community. Newspapers, radio programs, and social media shared her performances and the story of her journey from humble beginnings to inspiring musician. People reached out, asking for advice, guidance, and even collaboration. She responded with kindness and humility, always emphasizing that anyone could achieve their dreams with effort, courage, and love for what they do. The journey also strengthened her character. She learned to handle both praise and criticism with grace, to stay focused under pressure, and to trust her instincts. She became more confident not just as a musician, but as a person, knowing that challenges were opportunities to grow, and that mistakes or doubts were not failures but lessons. Her music was no longer just notes on a page. It was a reflection of her life, her growth, and her resilience. In quiet moments, she reflected on the day she had been humiliated, the first time she had faced public doubt. She realized that the experience, though painful at the time, had been crucial in shaping her determination and courage. Without that moment, she might not have developed the strength and passion that allowed her to shine on larger stages. She had transformed pain into motivation, criticism into fuel for improvement, and fear into confidence. As she looked forward to the future, she understood that her journey was just beginning. There would be more challenges, more performances, and more opportunities to share her music with the world. But she felt ready. Each key she pressed, each note she played, was a testament to her growth and resilience. She knew that no matter what obstacles came her way, the love for music and the belief in her own abilities would guide her forward, helping her touch the hearts of everyone who listened. The weeks after the music festival were a whirlwind of activity. Invitations came from other cities, asking her to perform at recitals, schools, and cultural events. Each time she accepted, she felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. She knew that every performance was an opportunity to connect with people through her music, but the stakes felt higher each time. She spent long hours practicing, refining her pieces, and preparing herself mentally for the challenge. It was not just about playing the notes perfectly. It was about expressing the emotions behind them, letting her music speak where words could not. One day, she received news that she had been invited to perform at a prestigious national music competition. The thought was both thrilling and terrifying. This was the kind of event where the most talented young musicians from across the country would gather, judged by experienced professionals. She knew that the audience and judges would have high expectations, and she felt the familiar knot of anxiety in her stomach. But she also remembered all the times she had faced doubt and humiliation and had turned them into strength. This time, she would play not to prove herself to anyone, but to share her heart through music. The competition hall was enormous. Rows of seats stretched further than she could see, and the stage was bathed in bright lights. Backstage, she could hear the sounds of other competitors practicing, some softly, some with intensity. She watched as young musicians went on and performed, each showing incredible skill. A part of her wondered if she could match their talent, but she quickly pushed the doubt aside. She reminded herself that her strength did not lie only in technical skill, but in the emotion she brought to her music, the story she could tell with every note. When her turn came, she walked onto the stage with calm determination. The audience quieted instantly, sensing that something special was about to begin. She glanced at the judges, seeing their focused expressions, and at the famous teacher in the front row, who had supported her growth since the first performance. His nod gave her a subtle reassurance. She sat at the piano, let her fingers hover over the keys, and took a deep breath, letting the music flow through her. The first notes were soft and tentative, drawing the audience in with a gentle introduction. But as she continued, her confidence grew. Each phrase became more expressive, each note carefully placed to tell a story of perseverance and hope. Her fingers moved swiftly yet gracefully, showing both precision and emotion. She played with a depth that came not just from talent, but from experience, from every hour she had spent practicing alone, from every challenge she had faced and overcome. As the piece progressed, she allowed herself to improvise in certain sections, letting her feelings guide her fingers. It was a delicate balance between control and freedom, and she executed it flawlessly. The audience responded, leaning forward, their eyes wide, completely captivated. Even the other competitors backstage paused to listen, impressed by the confidence and skill she displayed. She was not just playing music. She was telling a story, sharing her journey with everyone who could hear. Halfway through the performance, she reached a section of the piece that was technically demanding. Her fingers had to move quickly across the keys, maintaining clarity and precision while still conveying emotion. This was the moment where many musicians faltered under pressure. But she remained focused, remembering all the challenges she had faced before and the moments of triumph that had come from persistence. The notes flowed perfectly, each one clear, each one full of feeling. She could feel the energy of the audience, their attention and admiration pushing her to give even more. By the time she reached the final section, the music had grown into a powerful crescendo. Her fingers danced across the keys, the sound filling the hall with a mixture of strength and beauty. She played not for recognition or approval, but because the music demanded it. Each note carried the essence of her journey, her struggles, her determination, her love for the piano, and her unwavering belief in herself. The audience was completely captivated, their silence reflecting the respect and awe they felt for her talent. When the final note rang out, it lingered in the air, creating a moment of pure silence. Everyone in the hall seemed frozen, taking in what they had just experienced. Then, the applause began slowly, building into a thunderous ovation. People stood, clapping, cheering, some wiping tears from their eyes. She smiled, feeling a warmth and satisfaction that went beyond recognition. It was the fulfillment of sharing her heart and soul through music. She had faced the challenge, given her best, and connected with people in a profound way. The judges approached her after the performance, their expressions filled with admiration. They praised not only her technical skill but also the emotion, creativity, and authenticity in her playing. The famous teacher, standing nearby, smiled with pride, acknowledging the growth and talent she had displayed. She had once faced humiliation in front of him, and now she had transformed that experience into a powerful statement of skill, passion, and resilience. After the competition, she was approached by organizers, other musicians, and audience members who wanted to congratulate her and hear more about her journey. She shared her story openly, emphasizing the importance of perseverance, passion, and belief in oneself. She wanted others to understand that challenges and doubts were not obstacles but opportunities to grow, and that true talent shines brightest when it is nurtured with dedication and love. The experience at the national competition was transformative. It reinforced the lessons she had learned from every previous challenge: the value of persistence, the importance of staying true to oneself, and the power of music to connect with people on a deep emotional level. She realized that success was not only about technical mastery or recognition, but about the courage to face fears, overcome doubts, and express one's true self. In the weeks that followed, she continued to perform at various events, each performance further solidifying her reputation as a talented and inspiring pianist. She remained humble, never forgetting the journey that had brought her to this point. The early days of practice on her old piano, the moments of doubt and humiliation, and the countless hours spent refining her craft. Each stage she stepped on was a reminder of her resilience, her dedication, and her love for music. Through all of this, she learned to handle both praise and criticism with grace. She understood that recognition could be fleeting, but the love for her art was constant. She continued to practice diligently, explore new pieces, and challenge herself in ways that allowed her to grow as a musician and as a person. Her journey was far from over, but she felt prepared for whatever came next, confident in her ability to face new challenges with courage, skill, and passion. The turning point of her story was clear. She had transformed humiliation into triumph, doubt into determination, and fear into confidence. Her music had become a voice that spoke for her, conveying emotions and stories that words could never fully express. She realized that every note she played carried the essence of her journey and had the power to inspire others to pursue their dreams with dedication and heart. And as she looked toward the future, she knew that no matter what challenges or obstacles arose, she would continue to play, to express, and to touch the hearts of everyone who listened. The months following the national competition were filled with new opportunities and experiences. She traveled to different cities, performing in concert halls, schools, and cultural events. Each venue brought a new audience, and each performance strengthened her confidence. She realized that her music could connect with people across different backgrounds and ages, and that feeling of connection was deeply fulfilling. She had never imagined that the piano, a simple instrument she had learned on at home, could open so many doors and touch so many hearts. She continued her rigorous practice routine, but now it felt different. It was not just about improving her skills or preparing for competitions. It was about discovering new ways to express her emotions and stories through music. Each practice session became an exploration, a chance to experiment with new techniques, melodies, and rhythms. She felt a freedom in her music that she had not known before, a joy in creating something that was uniquely her own. The hours of practice, which once felt tiring and challenging, now brought a deep sense of satisfaction and purpose. People who had once doubted her began to take notice. The famous teacher, who had humiliated her long ago, now openly supported her, recommending her for performances and acknowledging her talent in front of others. It was a moment of validation, not because she needed his approval, but because it reflected the growth and recognition she had achieved through her own dedication and perseverance. She had turned a moment of humiliation into motivation, and that transformation had led her to a level of skill and confidence that few could ignore. Her story spread even further. Local newspapers, radio shows, and online platforms shared the tale of a young woman who had faced public doubt, but rose above it with her talent and determination. People reached out to her from all over, asking for advice, sharing their own struggles, or simply expressing admiration for her journey. She responded to each message with humility, always encouraging others to pursue their passions, no matter the obstacles. She wanted people to understand that setbacks and criticism were not the end. They could be the beginning of something greater. One evening, after a long day of travel and performance, she sat quietly in her hotel room, reflecting on her journey. She thought about the day she had first faced humiliation, the first time the teacher had doubted her, and the countless hours she had spent practicing alone. Those moments, which once felt painful and discouraging, now seemed like essential parts of her story. They had shaped her into the musician she had become, teaching her resilience, patience, and the importance of believing in herself. She realized that her journey was not just about the piano. It was about growth, courage, and the power of perseverance. As her reputation grew, she was invited to perform at international events. The idea of traveling to different countries, playing in front of diverse audiences, and experiencing new cultures excited her. Each new performance was a chance to share her music, to tell her story through sound, and to inspire others with her journey. She approached each opportunity with the same dedication and humility that had guided her from the very beginning, understanding that her talent was a gift meant to be shared, not just displayed. During one performance abroad, she noticed a young girl in the front row, watching her intently. The girl's eyes were wide with admiration, and she clutched a small notebook in her hands. After the performance, the girl approached her and shyly asked for advice on practicing the piano. She smiled, recognizing a reflection of herself at that age, filled with curiosity and determination. She shared simple tips, emphasizing patience, regular practice, and playing from the heart. In that moment, she understood that her influence extended beyond the stage. She could inspire and guide the next generation of musicians, just as others had inspired her. She continued to perform, travel, and teach, balancing her growing career with a commitment to remain grounded and humble. She remembered the lessons of her past, that criticism and doubt were part of the journey, that true success comes from perseverance and self-belief, and that music is a powerful way to connect with others. She never forgot the first hall where she had faced humiliation, the first applause that had filled her with pride, and the moments of struggle that had tested her patience and resolve. Each of these experiences had contributed to her growth, shaping her not just as a musician, but as a person. Years passed, and she became known not only for her skill but for the emotion and authenticity in her performances. People spoke of the way she could convey stories through her music, touching hearts without words. She performed in grand concert halls, small community centers, and educational institutions, always bringing the same passion and dedication to each stage. Her story inspired countless others to pursue their dreams, to face challenges with courage, and to believe in the power of perseverance. Through it all, she maintained a deep love for the piano. It was more than an instrument. It was her companion, her voice, and her way of expressing what could not be said in words. She continued to explore new pieces, compose her own music, and push the boundaries of her abilities. Each note she played reflected her journey, her growth, and her dedication. She understood that music was a lifelong pursuit, and she embraced it with joy, humility, and passion. Looking back on her journey, she realized that the humiliation she had faced long ago was a turning point. It had forced her to confront her fears, to work harder, and to believe in herself. It had shown her that talent alone was not enough, that courage, determination, and perseverance were equally important. And it had taught her that success was not just about recognition or applause, but about staying true to oneself and sharing one's gifts with the world. Her journey was far from over, but she faced the future with confidence. She knew that challenges would continue to arise, that criticism and doubt might still appear, but she was prepared. She had learned to transform obstacles into opportunities, fear into motivation, and doubt into determination. Her music had become a reflection of her strength, resilience, and heart, and she knew that as long as she played with honesty and passion, she could continue to inspire and connect with people everywhere. In the quiet moments, when she sat at her piano alone, she reflected on all she had achieved. She thought about the young girl who had first doubted herself, the long hours of practice, the performances that had tested her courage, and the audiences that had been moved by her music. She smiled, grateful for every step of her journey, the struggles, the victories, and the lessons learned. She understood that her story was not just about talent, but about the courage to face challenges, the dedication to pursue one's dreams, and the joy of sharing one's heart through music. And so, she continued to play, each performance a celebration of her journey and a testament to the power of perseverance. She had turned humiliation into triumph, doubt into confidence, and fear into a passion that could move hearts. Her music spoke for her, telling a story of resilience, courage, and the beauty of believing in oneself. And in every hall, in every audience, and in every heart she touched, her journey became a reminder that with determination and love for what you do, even the hardest obstacles can be overcome, and the most beautiful stories can be told.